We frequently take for granted the magnificent innovation that transformed the course of history, the internal combustion engine, in a world powered by engines, where the roar of horsepower fills the air. But have you ever wondered who was responsible for this breakthrough invention? The internal combustion engine represents a watershed moment in the history of the automobile industry and humans. Internal combustion engines power practically all vehicles seen on the road, from cars and motorbikes to planes in the sky and ships at sea. This engine is a replacement for old-fashioned steam engines or external combustion engines. However, this engine is undeniably more efficient than its predecessor. The key difference between steam engines and combustion engines is that in the latter, the fuel is combusted on the inside by repeated ignition, with the generated gases moving the pistons. In external combustion, the fuel is combusted on the outside and the resulting heat vaporizes a working fluid, which then provides motion and useful work by expanding and acting on the engine's mechanism. Internal combustion engines have a more than 150-year history, and several great brains have contributed to their advancement to where it is today. Here's a quick look at how it evolved. How does internal combustion work? First things first, let's take a moment to go over the fundamentals of how internal combustion occurs. We're going to proceed under the assumption that you already are aware of this information. However, just in case you aren't, we hope that you'll find the following information helpful. The pistons and the crankshaft of the internal combustion engine are the components that are directly responsible for producing power in the engine. Fuel and air are allowed to enter the combustion chamber, which is then used to compress the mixture before lighting it on fire. The force of the ignition exerts pressure on the crankshaft-attached pistons, which causes the pistons to move forward. The reciprocating movement of the pistons is what ultimately produces rotation of the crankshaft, which in turn supplies the necessary rotational force for the wheels to turn. When the air and fuel combination of the combustion chamber has finished combusting, the piston will push it through the exhaust valves and out of the chamber. The only difference between the operation of a diesel engine and that of a gasoline engine is that the diesel engine relies solely on compression to ignite the air-fuel mixture, whereas gasoline engines use spark plugs to do so. The inventions prior to 1860, because Etienne Lenoir created the first internal combustion engine that was successful on a commercial scale in 1860, this year is considered to be the watershed moment in the annals of internal combustion engine history. Nevertheless, in the time before that, a number of worthy engineers and scientists made a number of attempts that showed promise. Nicephore Niepce and his brother Claude Niepce were French engineers who, almost 50 years before Lenoir, constructed an internal combustion engine that functioned and controlled explosions and was fueled by a mixture of moss, coal dust and resin. They gave it the name the Pyréolophore, and Napoleon Bonaparte was the one who granted the patent for this particular engine. Soon after the invention of this engine, François Isaac de Rivaz developed a hydrogen-oxygen powered combustion engine. In this engine, the ignition mechanism was an electric spark and it was fueled by hydrogen and oxygen. After that, Rivaz went on to install his engine in a carriage, which eventually evolved into the world's first automobile that was powered by internal combustion. Because Etienne Lenoir created the first internal combustion engine and was successful on a commercial scale in 1860, this year is considered to be the watershed moment in the annals of internal combustion engine history. Nevertheless, in the time before that, a number of worthy engineers and scientists made a number of attempts that showed promise. 1860 and onwards, from 2 to 4-stroke engines. In the years that followed, there were a few noteworthy advancements made, but the major breakthrough did not occur until 1860, when it was accomplished by Jean-Joseph Etienne Lenoir. He is credited with inventing the first combustion engine that was able to perform its intended function, which was a gas-fired internal combustion engine. Functional in the sense that quite a few of them were actually manufactured and put to use in a variety of printing presses and looms all around the city of Paris. In the year 1863, Lenoir placed this engine inside of a vehicle and gave it the name Hippomobile. He drove this vehicle all the way from Paris to Joinville, Le Pont and back again, which is a total of 9 kilometers. As a fuel, he employed a derivative of turpentine. As a result, this vehicle was the first to have an internal combustion engine that was liquid fueled. However, Lenoir's Hippomobile was unable to satisfy the need for quickness. Its 2-stroke engine was only capable of producing 100 revolutions per minute, and it could go at a pace of 6 kilometers per hour on average. The smaller size and lighter weight of Lenoir's engine amazed many people despite the fact that it did not achieve a great deal of success in the automotive industry. Following that, the German engineer Nikolaus August Otto took on the challenge of improving the effectiveness of this particular engine. He began investigating the viability of using ethyl alcohol as a fuel and incorporating 4 strokes into the engine in order to increase its overall efficiency. In 1872, after 12 years of intense testing during which he experienced a number of failures, he finally succeeded in building a working 4-stroke engine based on the concept of Alphonse Baude-Rochas. He also established the principles of intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust. To this day, the fundamental operating principles of all internal combustion engines used in automobiles and motorcycles can be traced back to Otto. The 1880s engine developed ideal for vehicle. The Otto engine and its subsequent advancements were unquestionably more powerful than a Lenoir engine, yet the weight of the Otto engine became a worry for automotive manufacturers. They were a good fit for factories, but not so great for automobiles. They worked fairly well in factories. After that, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach were in charge of improving the performance of this engine. Once upon a time, beginning in the year 1881, associates of Otto began performing their own experiments in an effort to design engines that were compact, quick, and capable of powering vehicles on both land and water. Their first achievement came in 1883 when they invented a petrol gas engine with hot tube ignition that could produce 1 horsepower at 650 revolutions a minute. This achievement was the first of many. Because of its size and weight, it was excellent for use in automobiles due to its portability. The 2 individuals continued their work to improve the device's functionality, which led to the creation of the Reti-Wagen, the forerunner of modern motorcycles. They gave this invention its own name. In 1886, they placed an engine known as Grandfather Clock in a 4-wheeled carriage, and in 1889, they developed the first entirely self-propelled vehicle with a 1.5 horsepower motor. Both of these innovations took place in the United States. By the year 1900, Daimler and Maybach had boosted the power of automotive engines to 35 horsepower, which allowed for a maximum speed of 60 miles per hour. The future of internal combustion engines. We've talked a lot about the internal combustion engine's history, but what does the future hold for this technology? The internal combustion engine is likely to be phased out after a certain point, but manufacturers are continuing to innovate in the meanwhile. Turbocharging has grown in popularity in recent years and is likely to grow even more in the near future. A turbo can help engines run more efficiently in addition to producing more power. By turbocharging a small engine, you can achieve the same level of power as a larger, naturally aspirated engine while consuming less fuel. Another technology that may appear in internal combustion engines in the near future is homogeneous charge compression ignition. This technique combines the best of both worlds. It uses gasoline, which is cleaner than diesel but ignites it solely through compression, which is more efficient than ignition via a spark plug. Camless engines may also enter the market in the near future. The intake and exhaust valves in a typical internal combustion engine are actuated by a camshaft, which uses cams to open or close the valves at the appropriate time. Camshafts are simple, but they don't provide much control over valve lift duration. However, with a camless engine, each valve is controlled individually by a hydraulic or electronic actuator. This gives the engine's computer far more control over the combustion process, allowing the engine to be both more powerful and more efficient. The internal combustion engine has undergone a number of developments over the course of its history, following the introduction of a number of groundbreaking inventions. A crucial contributor to this development was the birth of a number of different separate automotive manufacturers. Because of the world's involvement in 2 terrible wars, the standards for the performance of vehicles were fundamentally altered. Because of this, there was a significant demand for the discovery and development of engines that could be used on land, in water, and in the air. After that, people's attitudes towards vehicles shifted, and they began purchasing more automobiles, which resulted in various advancements that contributed to the development of the internal combustion engine into what it is today. Finally, let's remember the spirit of exploration, the search for knowledge, and the unyielding tenacity that's propelled us ahead throughout history. And as we move forward, may we carry the flame of creativity, guided by past experiences, to create a world that is both exceptional and sustainable.